Hey, you, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Midnight Madness Chats with Hardman. I've got a great guest on the air tonight. Please introduce yourself, introduce your band, and tell me where you're from.
This is Corey Pierce of Disciples of Verity and God Forbid, and I'm from New Jersey, and I play drums for both those bands.
So, tell me, how long have you been playing for the two bands?
God Forbid since, I believe, 1996, and Disciples of Verity much shorter. It's only probably been like 4 or 5 years. I mean, the band is, fairly new. And pretty much when we got together, COVID hit, so there wasn't much happening. But yeah, I've been playing with God Forbid for a very long time. And total playing drums, I don't even remember. It's definitely over 30 years now, so it's a long time.
Tell me, how did you join Disciples of Verity? Tell me the story of how you joined, how you met up with the band members, and so forth.
Well, originally it wasn't supposed to be a band exactly. The bass player, George, had a group of songs that he had together. Well, he had some structures together after meeting up with Corey Glover, the vocalist, who wanted to do, kind of like a heavier project. And I guess George showed him some songs at NAMM and he liked them or whatever. So they started clicking. And then he called me up and basically asked me to, kind of help him finish the songs and push through to get to the end of the album. And then I kind of did that. And then he kind of talked me into recording the drums like 2 weeks later. So originally this was never supposed to be a band. It was just basically he had a bunch of ideas. He was going to get a bunch of guys that he knew together to, do whatever, whether it was bass or guitar or vocals or whatever, and record these songs. It escalated sort of into a band.
You guys have like an all-star lineup. Can you tell me a little bit about the band members and big projects you guys have played for?
I mean, I don't know this. I mean, I guess you could. I don't know if this is an all-star lineup. Obviously Corey Glover, as he's from Living Color, so they got some huge amount of notoriety and respect on the board. I mean, Rolling Stone put him in the top rock vocalists of all time. He's like number 25 out of the top 100. So that's pretty fucking good. You can't really laugh at that. So obviously he's done that. He's always working. He does like off-Broadway stuff. Sometimes he does, he was a long time ago, he was in Platoon, in case you guys didn't know. He was also in that movie. But he's always working. He's always out there, singing for somebody, keeping busy and doing something. Obviously I did and still am doing, God Forbid. We've been touring all over, toured all over the world, and now we're kind of, picking and choosing our spots. But I mean, did that for the better part of 15 years. And now it's kind of like we don't really tour now, but we do, a couple shows here or there. And now we're in the process of writing some new stuff as well that will be coming out at some point.
What does the name Disciples of Verity mean to you?
To me personally, I mean, originally when we were thinking is myself and the bass player George Pond were trying to think about names where that meant something that conveyed a serious idea without kind of, you couldn't say the name and know exactly what kind of music the band was playing. You know what I mean? Like Tool, you don't really know, like if you never heard of the band and you just heard their name, you wouldn't really know what type of music they were playing. Like you couldn't say, oh, that's definitely a rock band or definitely a punk band or definitely whatever. Some of that anonymity was what we were looking for when we were trying to come up with a name for the band, because we wanted the music to sort of be judged on its own merit. And Verity is basically the truth. That's what it stems from. So it's kind of like we stumbled into that title, and it made sense, and it fit the overall idea of what we were trying to convey, something that was very serious, that meant something to us, but at the same time gave the band some anonymity so that the music could be just heard for its own merits.
Can you tell me about Nexus? Tell me about the creative process you guys followed with the track. Tell me about the lyrics of the track. I get a very strong sense of a sort of like a kill switch engage type of influences in there. So tell me about that.
I mean, I guess that's great that you got that, but I can tell you that that was never entered into the equation. Uh, I mean, I think for most of it, actually, it was quite a different vibe than it wasn't like a metalcore vibe at all. It was more kind of like a heavy rock vibe, but we just have a sound. Obviously, it's a more metallic sound. But I mean, generally, and I'm sure, as you listen to the whole album, generally it has a very dark and sort of melodic groove sort of theme. The whole album does, especially when you have like a vocalist like we have. It makes things a little bit easier as far as trying to kind of live in that pocket of music where it's kind of dark, it's melodic, and it's heavy because obviously he carries a lot of the melody. There's no screaming, obviously, so there's none of that really happening. So it's like a completely different concept. Uh, that's where they heard Kill Switch in it. I didn't really pick that up right now, but I guess that, that's a good thing. So
Yeah, it's not really it's not like metal, but it's also not rock. I would say it's like a almost like a hybrid between rock and metal. So it's got the heaviness, it's got the like a groovy melodic stuff happening in the music, and then it's got this like really nice vocalist that's singing these awesome like harmonies. I heard some cool harmonies happening, and but I just at some point I had like a very nice because it's like this heavy seven string riffs, with the nice melodic vocals, and I just had this like little bit of a kill switch engage sensation happening. But I know you're obviously very unique in your own flavors that you've got going. But it's very interesting seeing a seven string guitar in a band that is not trying to be all that heavy.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's in many ways it's become too commonplace. Like people don't really use seven strings the way they have the potential to be used. They just that just sort of became the norm, and then a lot of bands just adapted to it, but they don't really fully, optimize the use of the guitar. They're just leaning on it almost as a crutch to just like, all right, this is the easiest way to make shit sound heavy. So get a seven string and then detune and you're fucking set. But obviously that wasn't our goal. It was like there was a lot of ideas because like we wanted to make a lot of things sound big and still be able to cover all that frequency range, right? So um, I think the seven string, while it does make certain things sound heavy, it's very utilitarian as far as matching up those frequencies from guitar to bass and drums and making everything sound pretty full and powerful without. And if you do it right, it's not overbearing either to the point where it's just obnoxious. Like you can use the seven string and be tasteful and write great riffs. Like I don't think everything has to be bow, 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 like there's there's definitely better riffs to be written. I think it's just like I said, people started to rely on it as a crutch, and that just became the go-to. Like, all right, if you want to be heavy, this is what you need. You need to get a seven string, and then you'll be heavy, and that's that. You know what I mean? And then it sort of just, I think it dumbed down a lot of music. You know what I mean? It like took a lot of the creativity out of hard rock and metal, where that it's entirely based and sort of going against following trends and all of that, trying to create something new. Not that not new in the sense like you're gonna make a brand new scale, but where you're basically making your version of the wheel the best way that you can make it, sort of. And I feel like a lot of that kind of has fallen by the wayside because of seven string guitars and the what became, I feel in some ways, is the very obnoxious nature of it's like they could be used to do so many things, and you see guys out there that really use those guitars to their full potential, and you hear the stuff that they write, and I don't see how you can hear that stuff and then just live in that dumbed down world. Like that's not, I don't think that's right. But I could go on about that for days, but I'm not going to harp on it.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a gear nerd myself, and I've got one more question about the seven string, and that's what tuning do you guys play? This guitar right here, this black guitar here, is a Mad Heffy custom seven string. So I like Les Pauls, and I've got that guitar because I do like Les Pauls. But I play a hybrid tuning that's like a drop C, and then the top string is like an F. So it's a drop F hybrid tuning. So and yeah, metal core type of death metal type of vibes. So obviously, like you said, it's heavy chugging, like dun, 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 you know. So yeah, tell
Well,
me.
there's nothing wrong with that. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, there's bands that do it well. You know what I mean? But I just think that the number of bands that just kind of like don't put that same amount of effort into it to do it well has saturated things enough to where it sometimes you just get sick of hearing it. You're just like, all right, man, I already know what this is before you even got started. But in answer to your question, there's multiple tunings across this record, and honestly, I don't remember them all because I stopped paying attention. Uh, but yeah, there's multiple tunings. It's not really all that crazy. It's not like Goo Goo Dolls and shit where there's like, they play in ridiculous tunings. Like there's two strings that are just half a step sharp and the rest is all in key. Like it's not anything wild. It's not Jim Croce land. It's pretty straight up.
Tell me about the themes that you guys explored on the album. Tell me about the journey through the album, and just a little bit of insight into the songs.
I mean, like I said, the album and it's if I was to just look at it as a whole, is mostly pretty dark. I mean, it's very sort of moody and it comes from a position of where I can definitely say as knowing Glover as a person lyrically, it comes from a place of looking at the world in a very skeptical light due to what's going on right now. Like there's a lot of people that have a lot of dark outlooks about what's going on all around us. And I felt like he definitely looks at the world that way. And I share a lot of the same views. And then that comes out in the music, you know what I mean, as well. You're going to get a bunch of guys together that all kind of like have similar influences, but just a little different. But they all have sort of like a lot of dark metal backgrounds. Like we were talking about this the other day. Like, there's certain bands that just unify everybody in most bands, right? Like in our band, there's a lot of different sort of tastes in music in a full range from guy to guy. But there's certain bands that tie us together that you just know like are like Judas Priest or Pantera or Van Halen, where it's like they have certain things that were so great they unify us all. And then when you sort of communicate with each other, you kind of use those ties together to start making better ideas and get on the same page. You know what I mean? Instead of focusing on just what's different, which the differences help as well. But you have to start somewhere. You got to have a base to start with. And I feel like that's kind of, we had like a long feeling out process for this record because the first album, George had a lot of structures already done. It wasn't really supposed to be a band. So there was, most of that input is his input. And then I just kind of came in and said, hey, maybe you should add a transition here or change this part here or change, get rid of this riff. It sucks, whatever. And then this record was a lot more involved. Obviously, everybody has more opinions and more inputs into what all the material and what's going on. Then we actually had Sahaj Ticotin come in to produce the album, and he's worked with a bunch of people. I could name all the bands that he's worked with, but he's worked with a lot of bands, Seven Dust, and just a lot of bands. He's a very, very good producer and a um, very talented guy. So, that being part of the process, it's always a little strange because it's hard to get in line with a producer and like try to get on the same page because you're deferring your judgment to somebody else a lot of times and you don't always know exactly where they're coming from. You're trying to again get on the same page and understand somebody else's idea about something that you feel strongly about as well. So obviously sometimes there's a little bit of confrontation, but I'd say all in all, everything went pretty smoothly. You know, writing these songs and getting everything together through the whole process. And there was a little problem recording. I got super sick. We were doing drums out in Indiana, and I got so sick that I couldn't move. And then I had to fly back home to Vegas, and I ended up finishing the drums in Vegas at that time when I was living in Vegas. But other than that, it went other than that, it went pretty smooth from beginning to end. And like I said, you if you listen to the album, you'll definitely feel it. And I feel in some ways too, it kind of has like a Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies type of vibe. You know what I mean? Where Jar of Flies is that almost like it's very melodic, and it's very dark, and it has like a very haunting feel to it, but it's not like overly whiny or emotional. It's just like very sincere, and I feel like you can feel the sincerity come through in these songs that we have. Like I said, other than me getting deathly ill during the process, the rest of it went pretty smooth, and I think we're all really proud of what came out of it.
You said something very interesting, and it's something I've been conflicting with myself in my music career. Working with a producer, especially such a well-established producer, is such an interesting topic. Because I've always said, so I come from South Africa, and I live in South Africa, and we're a South African band. So we don't necessarily always have the same resources as American bands would have. I think a producer plays a very important part in writing music because let's take for instance, I'm a guitarist and now I wrote this riff, and I am very sentimental about this riff because I wrote it. And now I've got a rhythm guitarist that plays with me, and he would say like, I don't like that riff, you are a semitone out, and we should rather change the scale from a major to a minor to make it sound more sad or whatever. And then sometimes it's difficult to handle those disputes amongst band members because you feel strongly about your art. And I think a producer is the ultimate person to go, you know what? Listen, I've heard your opinion and I've heard your opinion, and this is my opinion. So I can develop this into something better because obviously producers are field experts. They've been in the industry for such a long time. So tell me a little bit about the producer. You obviously worked with a very big producer, and tell me about his input versus your input. And you mentioned a little bit. Sometimes there was a little bit of conflict in your soul about the whole thing. So tell me about that a little bit more in detail.
Well, I mean, I've produced some albums myself, so I kind of went into this situation, not looking for conflict, but looking for, let's see what he has to say, and let's make the best of every situation. We came in here to achieve a certain goal, and bickering for no reason is stupid. It's just not an effective way to get anything done. When I met up with him, and he was basically he didn't really tell me a bunch of stuff to do exactly. You know what I mean? Like as far as producing me, he basically, he might have had to say, hey, can you hit this crash here and hit this accent here? Hey, what do you think about simplifying this down? I'm like, sure. And that was basically our interaction the whole time until he would be like, hey, why don't you try a different fill? There was like our back and forth was very minimal. It was very smooth, all in all. But in general, I don't know if it's the producer's role to always kind of say, okay, I hear this person, I hear this person. Let me kind of bridge these two ideas. I think the producer's role is to be that extra set of ears that just maybe ask the right question that you're not asking at the right time, and or maybe has the right answer. It's that sort of flexible person in the middle that just does whatever's needed at the time, in order to get things done. And I mean, there's different levels of that as well. Because obviously different producers have different styles depending what they're trying to achieve and what bands they're working with, and also how much they're emotionally attached to the material obviously makes a difference. He's a really talented guy. He has a lot of really great ideas. So everything generally went pretty smoothly. I mean, I think, the disagreements were pretty minimal, like, oh, should we try to do this? And like, oh, I don't think you should do that. Well, maybe I think I should, but then it's like, okay, let's try them and just work through it and see what sounds best and move on. And it was that simple. It wasn't like, no yelling and screaming or anything like that. I mean, that's, I've been there too, but sometimes that's what's called for, like, well, I don't want to say call for, but that's how things just happen sometimes. You get people that are passionate about doing something. Sometimes tempers are going to flare, frustration. I mean, often that frustration is born out of one thing, trying to make something really great. And when you have that as your baseline idea, then of course you're going to get heated when you think you have a great idea and somebody else doesn't agree. You're like, but we're, because you're so amped up to try to make this song the best thing it can be, or make this part the best thing it can be. And you think you have the greatest idea. Maybe it is, or maybe it's not, then that's where the confrontations come in. But I think it's all for the good. Like it's as long as everybody's working towards that goal and they're trying to make something great and they're not just yelling just to be an asshole, because often that happens. There's people that do that. They're just like, I'm just gonna come here and be a dick, just to be a dick. And you're like, why are you gonna come in here and tear down the vibes? Like no one needs that. Um, but yeah, I mean, all in all, it's a good experience, and I don't feel bad about any of it. I've learned from watching how he does things, and I've compared to how I do things in different situations. So everybody you meet with that type of experience is gonna share something with you, whether they want to or not. You're gonna pick some stuff up from them because you're spending a lot of time together in a very confined space, listening to each other, talk back and forth. So you have to look at those experiences and try to look at them and start from a positive place, not be, like shitty before it starts. Like, oh, we're gonna have to do this. We're gonna have to listen to somebody else.
100%. I think as long as everyone works, towards a common goal, that's what matters in the end. Tell me about Thread the Needle.
That was probably like, I want to say that was the first song that really came together of the new material that we actually like jammed in a room and said everybody was feeling good about it, like, from beginning to end fairly quickly. Like the parts came about and everybody got into it, and once we got the vocals on the song, I mean, that really sewed it up. But which I guess you could say that about every song on the record, because the icing on the cake, everybody loves the icing, right? But yeah, I mean, that was, I think, the first song of this new material where things started to come together, and we were like, okay, this is kind of the path we're on. It all started to make sense at that point.
Tell me, what do you want your listeners to take from the song?
I mean, I don't care what they take from it as long as they're listening to it. I mean, I think there's no way to direct people in that way. I think that you have to listen to the songs and you're gonna feel how you feel about it. You know what I mean? There's no way that I don't think that it's fair or even possible to totally, envision how somebody is going to take material, because regardless of theory or technical proficiency or any of those things, at the end of the day, music has an intangible quality, like that thing that makes the hair stand on the back of your neck, or when you hear a certain riff and you just get that feeling inside that gives you excitement or makes you want to shake your ass or headbang or whatever. There's those intangible qualities that make any art great, whether it's music or movies or TV, whatever, paintings. There's that thing that touches people that you can't quantify in like words exactly, but it's there. With that in mind, I mean, I'm just happy if people are listening to it. What they take away from it is their own. I hope that it's something good, not something like, man, I heard this and now I feel like I'm a piece of shit. Like that's terrible. Obviously you want to avoid those feelings, but as long as they're listening, I mean, I think I'm very open to any interpretation.
Well, if anyone thinks it's shit, they must fix their ears, because I think it's really great. It's very
Thank
well
you.
produced, very well recorded. I think you guys did some very artistic, like little. I heard the vocals are really good. The instruments are really good. It's clean. I love myself some guitar solos. So there was some really melodic, nice guitar solos in there. So I think you've got a perfect recipe for absolutely fucking amazing album.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tell me about the evolution of the band. Now, obviously, I know this wasn't supposed to be a band; it was a project that you guys started, like you mentioned earlier. Um, how have you evolved as musicians? That you guys started working together on this project. You sort of there was no stability because, obviously, like you said, it was not supposed to be a band, but then it developed into a band, and now obviously you guys have grown together. So tell me about that.
Well, George Pond, the bass player, originally started the project. I actually had produced the other band that he was in called Negative Sky. Um, he also played with now our two guitar players in another band that those two are in called Second Skyn. So all those guys are from South Jersey. Mark and George have known each other for years, like years. I've known George for years too, but they've known each other even longer. And then the other guitar player, Zack, obviously he plays in the band Second Skyn with the other guitar player, Mark. They all knew each other. I just sort of like, I knew all those dudes. Well, I didn't know Zack at the time, but I knew Mark and I knew George and I knew Glover from meeting him through friends of friends and just random occasions over time. Honestly, there hasn't been much chance for evolution because we sort of got together. We played a few shows, then COVID hit. So literally nothing was happening, for over 2 years. And then we started to get together and we're like, all right, we need to do something. Let's just start writing new material. So we had already written the first album, Pragmatic Sanction, and then, basically the stagnancy that COVID created pushed us like, all right, let's do something. So we started writing Nexus. Well, it didn't have a title then, but we started writing the material for this album. And it took a long time for several reasons, just because first there wasn't like we were rehearsing at a rehearsal studio at that time and like you couldn't really go in there and then you had to basically pick different hours and there's like a series of restrictions for going out and being out in public, as I'm sure you remember. But so that took quite a while. And then as we got that back together and back rolling, obviously Glover was doing stuff. He was doing his David Bowie tribute stuff, and Living Color started to go back out. So he was doing that. And then God forbid started doing shows. So I had to start rehearsing for that and going back out. And then it was just kind of like, okay, when I get home, let's get some rehearsal days in here or there. And that's pretty much the way it's been up until recording the album. And as soon as we knocked that out, it was kind of like then you're going through the whole process. You're going through mixing and getting everybody's opinion on that. Then you got to go through mastering and get everybody's opinion on that. And then you're dealing with the artwork. All this stuff takes time. And then we went through all of that, and that basically leads to right now. There hasn't been much time for the evolution of the band because most of the band, since our meeting and first getting together, the big portion of that was COVID time. So after that, we spent our time writing this new material and doing everything that was involved with doing that. And I mean, it was a process to say the least. And managing everybody's schedules because everybody's busy, everybody has responsibilities, um, people they're responsible to, and other bands and projects and everything else. So, but it's a fun process and it's all in all, it's a low maintenance project. Like everybody's pretty cool. There's like it's like not a band full of fighting and confrontation. Everybody's really chill and just like we talk and discuss ideas and it's all good. So as far as all that, it's been great. And I mean, I think as far as musicianship, I think any experience where you get together with a bunch of guys that you get along with and you get into a room, everybody rubs off on everybody, right? That's the magical juice that makes any band a band, right? Is that's the last original thing, in my personal opinion, is the chemistry between the people, because that's what makes every band different. Well, potentially, what makes every band different is that chemistry between those people is what gives a band its character and its sound and you know however you want to describe it. And I think it's been a really great experience. I think we all have fun, and it's a pleasure. It's not a burden.
Tell me about the future for the band. What's next? Are you guys going to be touring the album? I know the album has been out for a little bit, not too much, but yeah, tell me
I
about
mean,
it.
the full album's not actually released. I mean, we released Thread the Needle, and we're going to release, there's going to be more singles coming out, and then the full album release will happen. But I mean, we talked about touring on this record. We're kind of discussing what opportunities are going to come up and how to fit them around. Once again, it's fitting around scheduling and everything, that making everything work in a cohesive way. So we're working on it. We're working on it because we all want to get out there and play some of this stuff live and let people hear it live, because that's where the connection happens.
Tell me about streaming platforms. Where can we find your music, merchandise? Do you guys sell merchandise? Where can people find your merchandise? And just all your handle names.
I'll break it down like this. So streaming wise, we're everywhere: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all those things. Anywhere you can stream music, Disciples of Verity, easy to find. Disciples of Verity on every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to fucking call it, TikTok. We're all those places. Disciples of Verity Grooves or Disciples of Verity, either one, it'll pop up. Now, as far as the handles of the band, you can just look up Corey Glover. He's easy to find. He's on Twitter. He's on Instagram. He's on Facebook. I think he's actually got a weird name on X. It's like a weird. It's Reverend Daddy Love, I believe it is. George Pond, the bass player, is George Pond on everything. Like TikTok, all the social media is easy to find. The guitar players, Mark Monjoy, same thing. He's not on TikTok because he refuses to go on TikTok or Twitter. He refuses to do either one of those things. But he's on Instagram and Facebook. And Zack Miranowic is the other guitar player, and he's on everything. He's on TikTok. He's younger too. He's like the youngest in the band. He's just grown up into that social media lifestyle. He's on all the time, and he's on everything. You know what I mean? He's on Twitter. He's on X, whatever you want to call it. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that shit. He's on all that shit. Me, I'm pretty easy to find. All my handles on everything is Corey motherfucking Pierce. So it's pretty easy to find. Uh, I don't think there's any other ones. I haven't found another Corey motherfucking Pierce on any platform. I think I'm the only one. So I'm easy to find.
That is the coolest fucking handle I've ever heard. Really original.
It actually came about because anytime I would see somebody, especially when I hadn't seen them in a long time, they'd always look at me when they see me walking into a room and they go, Corey motherfucking Pierce. And like literally everybody I'd see, well, I'd see Campbell, from Lamb God. I see him, at a show or whatever, go meet up with him. He'd see me like Corey motherfucking Pierce. I see Shannon Larkin. I went to go see him at a Godsmack show. I went up into their dressing room and he saw me. He goes, Corey. Every time he sees me, he does the same thing. Corey motherfucking Pierce. And it started to spread. I noticed that a lot of people did it, like all the time. I was like, is it like a meeting where somebody emailed everybody and was like, yo, this is what we call them from now on? Because that's what it felt like. So I just said, one day I was just like, fuck it. I'll just use that as my handle for everything. It'll make it real easy.
That's a really fucking cool story. Well, anyway, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, please go out and listen to Disciples of Verity. I think most people will really enjoy it. I don't know if everybody will enjoy it because I don't know if there's anything that's for everybody. But if you love melodic and heavy music, you love the groove because those are the things that I love and all the guys in this band love, then you will enjoy this record. There's no shitty songs on this record. A lot of effort went into making every song and putting our best forward on from every riff, every note, every transition was, felt from beginning to end. So go out and listen to the record. Go check out the single Thread the Needle. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify. Put it in all your playlists. We got songs for everybody. Whether you shake your ass, a headbang, you jump up and down, we got all that groove for you.
Do you guys have an official release date?
No, well, not that we're supposed to talk about yet. It's coming. It's coming soon. The release date is coming soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Until next time, I've been Hardman.